in terms of why we need prioritization of the requirements, we had a short kind of discussion around this initially, that customer expectations are really high, things are changing so fast, timelines are short, and we have got limited resources. It's important that we identify what needs to be worked on in the next few days or weeks instead of the next 5 years. So when we talk about the roadmap, the senior management and the organization, the business strategy has got a really long term plan of what they want to do in the next 5 years. And that's the strategic perspective. Then comes a tactical perspective, which is about what needs to be done in the next 1 year or 2 years. That's a tactical. That's where the middle management operate. And then the operational aspect is pretty much like day to day, what needs to happen tomorrow, what needs to happen the next week. So you're agile in the context of that. Your vision, the business vision, is going to be the strategic aspect of 5 years where the organization wants to be. And then the tactical operation is the roadmap. How do we convert that vision, the mission, into something like a roadmap? What needs to be in the major release, what needs to be minor release, when do we need to release in the next 2 years or 1 year, right? So that's the roadmap that gives you a broad level what need to be into that release. So it's a very, again, certainly high level for the development team. And then comes the sprint plan, for example, which the sprint plan, the sprint goals, and the sprint backlog, which actually are the ones that the team could work on potentially, let's say 2 weeks. Their visibilities and their focus is only the next 2 weeks. They don't want to really bother about what would come after 2022 or what could happen after the next 3 years, 4 years, and 10 years. They don't want to bother about it. They want to just put their head down, make sure that they're focusing on what needs to be delivered in the next time box, and they would be able to work on that and deliver. And then comes the next one, so on and so forth. So it's very important that we address this. Otherwise, the prioritization, without prioritization, we won't really get anything into the time box, into the product. And there's no MVP, there's no product, there's nothing that can be delivered to the market. And it's important because of the fact that we've got limited resources, as in limited time, limited number of people, and so much of competition right now with digital, right? So you've got competition literally at the tip of your finger. If the customer can just click some button or some other option, they would be going to a different customer or a different competitor of yours, and they're gone. Once that is done, and your business is lost, all within the click of a button or a flick of a mouse. So what is important is, if that is the case, it's so important that you need to deliver quickly something to the market, and you can't just sit on your ideas or concepts for years and years and then try and have the perfect solution in the world, because there's no such thing as a perfection, literally. So if that were the case, we need to deliver something really quickly. So that means that there's not much of time available. And if you want to deliver something quickly, which is basically, we're talking about weeks and months and not years and decades as before. If that were the case, we need to have some team, and the team has got some certain skill sets, right? Again, we can't have all the people in the whole wide world coming into the team and then working on it. So we've got some, again, resources are limited. We've got time limited. We've got the scope also limited from that perspective, because we time box. And that's why we need to prioritize what needs to go in that time box of that sprint of 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks is what is important than what is going to happen after 5 years. So prioritization is very, very, very important from that context as well. And also, when we talk about the prioritization, there's always the sense of balance. We just discussed in the last slide how business, the customers, the development team, the testers, and everyone work towards identifying the priority. Sometimes what is important for the business may not be achievable immediately by the technology team because of the technical feasibility angles, right? So that's when we have always a sense of negotiation with the business team, with the customers, and perhaps there is a sense of dialogue, conversations, and say, yeah, we can have this reporting engine here, we can have this workflow, but then that needs some time because we haven't gotten the data yet. The database is not ready yet, so we can't integrate that. So if you can give us some time, we can work on that. But meanwhile, what we can do is this: we can have this temporary solution of this one pager that we can add as a web page. We can do this. We can still capture all of that information, but it's not the perfect, not the ultimate solution. So they're offering trade-offs, they're offering better ways of doing things, a better solution that works for now, which is what Agile is all about. Things which is just do something, improve it, and then keep improving later. Deliver it, continuously. Continuous development, continuous integration, and continuous delivery. That's the mantra for Agile. So again, in the context of even the mainstream traditional approach, it still is the same. Also, sometimes it is all about, I need all of these features, just make it happen somehow. This is the kind of thing that people get to hear. However, it doesn't happen all the time. The business might ask that, I need all of these, I need all of them, very important, get it done by tomorrow or next week. It's not possible, isn't it? So every time there's always this choice. We need to, as human beings, as businesses, as organizations, we've got the sense of choosing things which are important and urgent, and then obviously that means that the rest of them have to be dropped. So that is the hard reality of professional and personal lives. We just need to accept that and then move on and implement that, move on. And that's what is important. Again, the same thing, these are all building up a case as to why we need to prioritize requirements. I think we have discussed this in at length already. So, and then again, one of the examples is basically they're talking about the business analyst spending a lot of time in prioritizing or insisting that we need to prioritize requirements. We can't just have 1,000 requirements and all 1,000 need to be worked at the same time, which is madness. So the BA is trying to insist on the management to prioritize. Out of the 1,000, select at least, let's say 100. You shortlist 100, and then we'll work on those 100 and see which of them can be delivered based on the technical feasibility, based on the resources, based on the schedule. We'll work on that. We'll come up with another final list of, let's say, 20 odd requirements. So for that, the business would always have a kind of aversion, have a kind of no, we can't do that. We need all of them. These are important for the customer, our customer, right? So it's important that we need to understand what they're coming from, right? The managers reasoned out they could often do without one feature, but another feature may need to be puffed up to make. So they're always trying to actually negotiate. We can do without this, but then you need to give something else, right? You need to work on the report. So they're trying to actually, make sure that they want to accommodate all 1,000 in some form or the other. But you as an analyst need to convey that it's important, as we discussed. We need to understand the dependencies, the connections, the relationships among these different requirements. And then we need to link it back to the business strategy. We need to link it back to the big goals. We need to link it back to the original set of requirements, the functional requirements, the non-functional requirements. Say, okay, you know what, if we do this, then we're going to achieve it. So again, linking of your user stories and the operational level requirements, the functional and non-functional stuff, back to the organization's tactical goals, which are again back to the strategic goals and the vision and the mission of the organization. That would make more sense. And when you do that, effectively, that carries a lot of weight, and people would actually kind of take cognizance of that. And that's what is need to be done by the BA in these kind of conflicting situations. They need to always refer to the, again, how do you do that? The traceability, right? We were talking about the traceability. So traceability, not just starting at the requirement stage, there to the design, to the code and to the testing, but potentially you can actually map the requirements through to the goals, the organizational tactical goals, and then the strategic goals, the vision, the mission, and the objectives, right? That's why it makes more sense to go a little further up into the chain of the traceability. And then how do you prioritize requirements at different scales? Some scales you can use, you can use different techniques as well, not just scales. We've got, for example, Moscow technique, which is actually kind of stands for the must have, should have, could have, and will not have now. And we've got the other thing, which is to do with the ABC. We've got high, medium, low. There are different ways that you can use to prioritize your requirement: essential, conditional, optional, 1, 2, 3. Some people use 1, 2, and 3. 1 being very, very important, very urgent. 2 being moderately urgent, and 3 being not really urgent. And the same with high, medium, low. And you can have a very high. Again, that depends on the scale, right? So, for example, some people actually use very high. very high, high, medium, low, very low. So five point scale. And then there could be 3 point scale, again, 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. A, B, and C could be used. Some people use Moscow, for example: must have, should have, could have, and will not have. All of these are different techniques, different ways to kind of prioritize your